In a quiet suburb on the outskirts of Chicago, life moved at a predictable pace. The streets were lined with modest homes and friendly neighbors who waved as they passed each other in their cars or strolled down the sidewalks. It was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names and nothing exciting ever seemed to happen. But beneath this calm and ordinary surface lay secrets that no one could have guessed, secrets hidden even from those who thought they understood. Everything about the people around them. Maya Rivers lived in a small house at the end of Maple Street. She was a black woman in her early 30s, known for her warm smile and soft-spoken nature. To her neighbors, she appeared unassuming, almost fragile. Maya walked with a cane, the result of what she described as an accident years ago that left her unable to move without assistance. Her disability made her seem like someone who needed protection rather than someone capable of protecting others. And because of this perception, few people paid much attention to her beyond polite greetings and occasional offers of help when she struggled with groceries or climbed stairs. What no one realized, not her neighbors, not the local authorities, and certainly not the members of a racist gang called the Iron Fist, was that Maya Rivers was anything but weak. Beneath her calm exterior lay years of rigorous training in combat, espionage, and survival tactics. Before retiring due to injuries sustained during a classified mission, she had earned a reputation as one of the deadliest operatives in the U.S. Special Forces. Her code name had been Shadow Strike, given to her because of her ability to blend into any environment and strike with precision before disappearing without a trace. Her so-called disability? A cover story crafted so well that even those closest to her believed it. The Iron Fist was a group of young men who ruled the neighborhood through intimidation and violence. They targeted anyone they deemed different, immigrants, minorities, and especially women of color. Their leader, Darren Holt, was a tall, muscular man with tattoos covering his arms and a permanent sneer etched onto his face. He prided himself on spreading fear wherever he went, convinced that his actions would cleanse the community of those he considered unworthy. The gang operated under the radar, careful not to attract too much attention from law enforcement. Instead, they relied on subtle acts of terror, vandalism, threats, and occasional beatings to keep their victims compliant. When the Iron Fist set their sights on Maya, they saw her as an easy target. After all, how could a disabled woman possibly fight back? They began small, testing the waters. One night, as Maya sat in her living room reading a book, she heard a loud crash. Startled, she grabbed her cane and hobbled toward the noise, only to find shards of glass scattered across her floor. A rock lay in the middle of the mess, along with a note scribbled in crude handwriting. "Go back where you came from." Maya stared at it for a moment, then sighed. She cleaned up the mess and went to bed, deciding not to report the incident to the police. Over the next few weeks, the harassment escalated. Graffiti appeared on her garage door, calling her racial slurs. Her car tires were slashed twice in 1 week. Anonymous phone calls filled with threats disrupted her evenings. At first, Maya tried to ignore it, telling herself it was just random vandalism. But deep inside, she felt anger bubbling to the surface. These cowards thought they could break her spirit, but they had no idea who they were dealing with. Maya's past was something she rarely spoke about. Born into a military family, she had grown up surrounded by discipline and duty. From a young age, she excelled in physical activities, showing remarkable skill in martial arts and marksmanship. When she turned 18, she enlisted in the Army, quickly rising through the ranks thanks to her intelligence, resourcefulness, and sheer determination. During her time in the Special Forces, she carried out missions in some of the most dangerous parts of the world, earning accolades for her bravery and effectiveness. However, her career took a drastic turn when she was injured during a high-stakes operation. Official reports claimed she suffered severe damage to her leg, leaving her unable to continue active service. What wasn't mentioned was that the injury was partly staged, a way for her to step away from the brutal realities of war while maintaining her anonymity. After retiring, Maya moved to Chicago, hoping to live a quieter life. She adopted the persona of a disabled civilian, using her graphic design skills to work remotely and dedicating her free time to volunteering online for organizations helping underprivileged youth. For years, she succeeded in keeping her true identity hidden, blending seamlessly into her new surroundings. But now, with the Iron Fist targeting her, she found herself facing a dilemma. Should she remain passive and let them continue their reign of terror? Or should she reveal the warrior within and put an end to their cruelty once and for all? As the attacks grew more frequent, Maya's resolve hardened. She couldn't stand by and watch innocent people suffer because of hatred and ignorance. Yet she also knew that taking on the Iron Fist wouldn't be easy. They weren't amateurs. They were organized, ruthless, and well-connected. If she wanted to stop them, she would need to use every ounce of her training and cunning. First, though, she needed to gather information. Under the pretense of attending physical therapy sessions, Maya started visiting an old friend named Marcus, who ran a local self-defense gym. There, she began retraining her body, pushing past the limits imposed by her supposed disability. She practiced stealth movements, hand-to-hand combat techniques, and strategies for disarming opponents, all while ensuring no one suspected her true abilities. At the same time, Maya turned her attention to gathering intelligence. Using her tech-savvy skills, she hacked into social media accounts and monitored public surveillance cameras to track the Iron Fist's movements. She discovered their meeting spots, identified key members of the gang, and pieced together their hierarchy. Slowly but surely, she built a detailed profile of their operations. Every piece of information fueled her determination to dismantle them completely. Despite the mounting tension, Maya refused to let fear dictate her life. She continued going about her daily routine, pretending to be oblivious to the danger lurking around her. Inside, however, she was preparing for battle. She knew that confronting the Iron Fist would require more than just physical strength. It would demand patience, strategy, and an unwavering commitment to justice. As she tightened the screws on her cane one evening, she reminded herself of the lessons she had learned during her time in the military. Never underestimate your enemy, and never let them see your true power until it's too late. Little did the Iron Fist know, they had picked the wrong person to mess with. What they saw as vulnerability was actually a carefully constructed facade. Maya Rivers wasn't just a disabled woman trying to live peacefully in her suburban home. She was a highly trained killer with a mission, and she was ready to take them down. As the days turned into weeks, Maya Rivers found herself caught in a dangerous game of cat and mouse with the Iron Fist. Each act of vandalism or threat left at her doorstep only fueled her determination to fight back. But she knew better than to rush into battle without a plan. Her years in the Special Forces had taught her that preparation was key to survival and victory. While the gang continued their campaign of terror, Maya worked tirelessly behind the scenes, piecing together every detail she could about their operation. The first step was gathering intelligence. Maya spent hours each night sitting at her computer, her fingers flying across the keyboard as she hacked into social media accounts, email threads, and even public surveillance cameras. She discovered that the Iron Fist wasn't just a random group of thugs. They were organized with clear roles and a chain of command. Darren Holt, their leader, was the mastermind behind most of their attacks. He was charismatic but also ruthless, inspiring loyalty among his followers while instilling fear in anyone who dared to cross him. Beneath him were two lieutenants, Trevor and Marcus, who handled logistics and enforcement, respectively. Then, there were the foot soldiers, young men eager to prove themselves by carrying out the dirty work. Maya's research revealed more than just names and faces. She learned where the gang met, a decrepit warehouse on the outskirts of town, and when they conducted their operations. She noticed patterns in their behavior. They struck late at night, avoided areas with heavy police presence, and always covered their tracks. These details gave Maya valuable insight into how they operated, allowing her to anticipate their next move. But knowledge alone wouldn't be enough. If she wanted to take them down, she needed to regain her physical edge. Under the guise of attending physical therapy sessions, Maya began visiting an old friend named Marcus, who ran a local self-defense gym. Marcus was a former Marine and someone Maya had worked with briefly during her time in the military. Though he hadn't seen her in years, he welcomed her warmly, believing her cover story of wanting to rebuild strength after her supposed accident. What Marcus didn't know was that Maya wasn't there to recover. She was there to prepare for war. At the gym, Maya pushed herself harder than she had in years. She started with basic exercises designed to improve flexibility and balance, using her cane as both a tool and a prop. To anyone watching, it looked like she was struggling, a disabled woman trying to reclaim some semblance of normalcy. In reality, every movement was deliberate, every exercise tailored to sharpen her combat skills. When no one was around, Maya practiced advanced techniques, moving with a speed and precision that would have shocked anyone who thought she was weak. Her cane became an extension of her body, doubling as a weapon capable of delivering devastating blows. While honing her physical abilities, Maya also devised a strategy to weaken the iron fist from within. She knew she couldn't take on the entire gang by herself, so she decided to create chaos and division among its members. Using burner phones purchased with cash, she anonymously tipped off rival gangs about the Iron Fist's upcoming drug deals and turf wars. Within days, tensions erupted between the Iron Fist and other criminal organizations in the area. Fights broke out in alleyways and shots rang out in the dead of night. The Iron Fist, once untouchable, suddenly found themselves fighting for survival against multiple enemies. This internal strife bought Maya precious time to gather more information. One evening, under the cover of darkness, she infiltrated the gang's hideout, the abandoned warehouse on the edge of town. Dressed in all black and moving silently, she slipped past their guards undetected. Inside, she planted listening devices in strategic locations, ensuring she could monitor their conversations remotely. As she worked, she couldn't help but feel a sense of déjà vu. This was exactly the kind of mission she had carried out countless times during her military career, except now she was doing it alone, without backup or official sanction. Back home, Maya listened intently to the recordings she had collected. Through snippets of conversation, she pieced together crucial details about the gang's plans. They were planning a major attack, a show of force meant to reassert their dominance over the neighborhood. Their target? A community center hosting a multicultural festival aimed at promoting unity and understanding. Maya clenched her fists as she heard Darren boast about how they would send a message to anyone who dared challenge their authority. She realized she had to act fast if she wanted to prevent bloodshed. With her plan taking shape, Maya reached out to trusted allies from her past life in the military. She contacted 3 former teammates, Alex, Jamal, and Rachel, each of whom possessed unique skills that would prove invaluable in dismantling the Iron Fist. Alex was a demolitions expert, Jamal specialized in hand-to-hand combat, and Rachel excelled in reconnaissance and strategy. Maya kept her messages vague, explaining only that she needed their help with a personal matter. None of them knew the full extent of her situation, but they trusted her implicitly and agreed to assist without hesitation. Together, the 4 of them orchestrated a sting operation disguised as a charity event aimed at raising awareness for disabled veterans. Maya used her graphic design skills to create flyers and social media posts promoting the gathering, making sure to include language that would appeal to the Iron Fist's egos. She knew they wouldn't be able to resist crashing the event to assert their dominance. Meanwhile, she tipped off law enforcement about the true nature of the gathering, ensuring that officers would be ready to swoop in when the time came. As the day of the event approached, Maya felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had spent months preparing for this moment, and now everything hinged on whether her plan would succeed. She rehearsed every possible scenario in her mind, anticipating potential complications and devising contingency plans. Despite her confidence in her abilities, she couldn't shake the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just about stopping the Iron Fist. It was about protecting her community and proving that no one, not even a disabled black woman, should ever be underestimated. On the morning of the charity event, Maya stood in front of her mirror, adjusting the strap of her cane. She wore a simple yet elegant outfit, projecting the image of a vulnerable civilian grateful for the support of her neighbors. But beneath her calm exterior, she was a warrior ready to strike. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of why she was doing this. For too long, people like Darren Holt had preyed on the weak and marginalized, spreading hatred and fear. Today, she would show them what true strength looked like. As she stepped outside, the sun casting golden rays across her yard, Maya allowed herself a small smile. The Iron Fist thought they had broken her spirit, but instead, they had awakened something far more dangerous. They had no idea what awaited them, and that ignorance would be their downfall. The day of the charity event arrived, and Maple Street buzzed with an unusual energy. Neighbors who rarely interacted came together to set up booths, string colorful banners, and arrange tables filled with food and crafts. The theme of the event was Unity in Diversity, a celebration of the community's multicultural heritage. Children ran around laughing, their faces painted with vibrant designs, while adults exchanged stories over cups of coffee and plates of homemade treats. It was the kind of scene that made Maya proud to call this place home. But beneath the cheerful surface, tension simmered. Maya had spent weeks preparing for this moment, ensuring every detail of the operation was flawless. She coordinated with her former military teammates, Alex, Jamal, and Rachel, to finalize their roles. Alex positioned himself near the electrical panel at the back of the venue, ready to disable power if needed. Jamal blended into the crowd, his sharp eyes scanning for any suspicious activity. Rachel stayed hidden in a nearby van, monitoring surveillance footage from cameras discreetly placed throughout the area. And Maya? She played the part of the grateful organizer, greeting attendees with a warm smile and leaning on her cane as though it were her lifeline. Unbeknownst to the cheerful crowd, law enforcement officers were strategically stationed around the perimeter, waiting for Maya's signal. She had tipped them off about the Iron Fist's plans, providing detailed evidence she had gathered through months of surveillance. The police were prepared to move in swiftly once the gang revealed themselves, but until then, they remained out of sight, letting Maya take the lead. As the afternoon wore on, the atmosphere grew livelier. A local band began playing upbeat music, drawing people to the central stage. Volunteers handed out pamphlets promoting inclusivity and tolerance, while speakers shared inspiring messages about overcoming adversity. Everything seemed to be going according to plan, until a black SUV pulled up to the curb outside the venue. Its windows were tinted, and its arrival sent a ripple of unease through Maya's allies. They recognized it immediately. This was the Iron Fist's signature vehicle. Darren Holt stepped out first, flanked by Trevor and Marcus. Behind them trailed half a dozen other members of the gang, all wearing leather jackets emblazoned with their insignia, a clenched fist surrounded by barbed wire. Their presence was unmistakable. They swaggered toward the entrance like predators entering a den of prey. Darren's cold eyes scanned the crowd, his lips curling into a sneer as he took in the diversity of the gathering. To him, this event was nothing more than a mockery of everything he believed in, an insult to the purity he claimed to champion. Maya spotted them the moment they arrived. Her heart raced, but she forced herself to remain calm. She adjusted her grip on her cane and approached them with deliberate slowness, projecting the image of a harmless woman trying to maintain order. "Hi there," she said softly, her voice carrying just enough warmth to mask her resolve. "Welcome to our event. We're so glad you could join us." Darren smirked, clearly amused by her apparent vulnerability. "Yeah, wouldn't miss it," he replied, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Looks like quite the party you've got here." "It is," Maya said, nodding politely. "We're celebrating unity and understanding. I hope you'll enjoy yourselves." Internally, she braced herself for what was to come. She knew better than to expect civility from men like these. For a few tense minutes, the Iron Fist mingled among the crowd, their menacing stares making several attendees uneasy. Some parents ushered their children away, while others avoided eye contact altogether. But not everyone backed down. A group of teenagers stood their ground, glaring defiantly at the gang members. One boy even muttered something under his breath, loud enough for Darren to hear. In an instant, Darren grabbed the teenager by the collar, his face contorted with rage. "What did you say to me?" he growled. Before things could escalate further, Maya intervened. She stepped between Darren and the boy, her cane clicking against the pavement. "Let him go," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. "There's no need for violence here." Darren released the boy, but turned, his attention to Maya instead. He studied her for a moment, his sneer deepening. "You've got some nerve, cripple," he spat. "Maybe we should teach you a lesson about minding your own business." Maya didn't flinch. Instead, she leaned slightly on her cane, tilting her head as though considering his words. Then, without warning, she struck. With lightning speed, she swung her cane upward, catching Darren squarely under the chin. The force of the blow sent him stumbling backward, clutching his jaw in shock. Before he could recover, Maya pressed her advantage, using her cane to sweep his legs out from under him. He crashed to the ground, dazed and humiliated. The rest of the Iron Fist sprang into action, rushing toward Maya, but they underestimated her and her team. Jamal appeared seemingly out of nowhere, intercepting two gang members with a flurry of expertly executed punches. Alex triggered the emergency blackout, plunging the area into darkness and creating chaos. Rachel's voice crackled over hidden earpieces, directing each member of the team with precision. Meanwhile, Maya continued to hold her own, her cane becoming a blur of motion as she disarmed and incapacitated one attacker after another. Through it all, Maya's movements were calculated and efficient. Years of training had honed her reflexes to perfection, allowing her to anticipate her opponent's actions before they even thought to make them. When one gang member lunged at her with a knife, she sidestepped effortlessly, twisting his arm behind his back until he dropped the weapon. Another tried to grab her from behind, only to find himself flipped onto the ground with surprising ease. To anyone watching, it was almost surreal, a supposedly disabled woman taking down trained fighters with grace and skill. As the fight unfolded, law enforcement moved in, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. Officers swarmed the area, apprehending gang members one by one. Darren, still reeling from Maya's initial attack, struggled to escape but found himself cornered. He glared at her, hatred burning in his eyes. "You think you're so tough?" he snarled. "You're nothing but a freak." Maya stepped closer, her expression unreadable. "No," she said quietly, her voice laced with steel. "I'm your worst nightmare." With that, she delivered a final blow, knocking him unconscious. As handcuffs snapped around his wrists, Maya turned away, her breathing steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. When the dust settled, the crowd erupted into cheers. Neighbors clapped and whistled, shouting words of gratitude to Maya and her team. For many, it was the first time they had felt truly safe in years. Parents hugged their children tightly, tears streaming down their faces. Even the teenagers who had earlier stood up to the Iron Fist approached Maya, thanking her for protecting them. Despite the outpouring of appreciation, Maya remained humble. She brushed off compliments, insisting that she had simply done what needed to be done. Yet as she watched officers load the Iron Fist into patrol cars, she allowed herself a small measure of satisfaction. These men, who had once terrorized her community, were now powerless. Their reign of fear was over. Later that evening, as the cleanup efforts began, Maya sat alone on a bench overlooking the emptying venue. Her body ached from the exertion, but her mind was clear. She thought about the journey that had brought her here, from her days in the Special Forces to her quiet life in suburbia, and realized how far she had come. Taking on the Iron Fist hadn't been easy, but it had reminded her of why she had joined the military in the first place, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. Rachel joined her a few moments later, handing her a bottle of water. "That was impressive," she said, smiling. "You haven't lost your touch." "Thanks," Maya replied, taking a sip. "But this wasn't just about me, it was about showing them, and everyone else, that hate doesn't win. Not here. Not ever." Rachel nodded, her gaze thoughtful. "So what's next for you?" Maya hesitated, staring at the horizon. She didn't have an answer yet, but one thing was certain. Her fight wasn't over. There would always be people like Darren Holt in the world, spreading fear and division. And as long as they existed, Maya knew she would be ready to stand against them, not as a victim, but as a warrior. The aftermath of the charity event left the neighborhood transformed. For years, fear had cast a shadow over Maple Street, dictating how people lived their lives and who they trusted. But now, with the iron fist behind bars, a sense of hope began to take root. Neighbors who had once avoided eye contact now exchanged warm smiles. Parents no longer hesitated to let their children play outside. Even the graffiti that had marred walls and fences seemed less threatening, a relic of a darker time. Maya Rivers, however, remained unchanged in many ways. She still woke up early each morning, brewed a pot of coffee, and worked on her graphic design projects from the comfort of her home office. She attended community meetings, volunteered online for organizations supporting underprivileged youth, and occasionally visited Marcus's gym under the guise of physical therapy. To the outside world, she appeared to be the same soft-spoken, disabled woman they had always known. Yet beneath her calm exterior, Maya carried the weight of what she had done, and what it meant for her future. Word of her heroics spread quickly through the neighborhood, though few knew the full extent of her involvement. Those who had witnessed the confrontation at the charity event spoke of her bravery, describing how she had single-handedly taken down Darren Holt and his gang. Some called her a guardian angel, others referred to her as a symbol of resilience. Despite the praise, Maya kept her distance, deflecting attention whenever possible. She didn't want recognition or fame, only peace for herself and her community. But peace, as Maya well knew, was never permanent. Within days of the iron fists, arrest rumors began circulating about rival gangs vying to fill the power vacuum left in their absence. While these groups lacked the cohesion and ruthlessness of the iron fist, they posed a new kind of threat, unpredictable violence fueled by desperation. Maya monitored their activities closely, using her tech skills to track their movements and intercept communications. She wasn't about to let another wave of terror sweep through her neighborhood, not after everything she had fought for. Her former military teammates, Alex, Jamal, and Rachel, remained in touch, checking in regularly to ensure she was safe. They offered to stay longer, to help her dismantle any emerging threats, but Maya declined. She appreciated their support, but this was her fight, her home. Besides, she had other plans brewing, plans that extended beyond simply protecting her immediate surroundings. One evening, as Maya sat alone in her living room, she received an unexpected phone call. The voice on the other end belonged to Agent Carter, a high-ranking official from the Department of Homeland Security. "Ms. Rivers," he began, his tone formal yet respectful, "we've been following your recent activities." Maya stiffened, gripping her cane tightly. She hadn't expected anyone outside her close circle to piece together her role in dismantling the Iron Fist. "I'm not sure what you're referring to," she said cautiously. Agent Carter chuckled softly. "Let's not play games, Ms. Rivers. Your file is impressive, even classified portions of it. We know who you are, what you've done, and what you're capable of. And frankly, we could use someone like you." Maya frowned, her mind racing. She had spent years distancing herself from her past life, burying the identity of Shadow Strike so deeply that even her closest friends believed her cover story. Returning to that world felt like stepping back into a nightmare, one she had worked hard to escape. Still, curiosity got the better of her. "What do you mean?" she asked. "We're assembling a task force," Agent Carter explained. "Its purpose is to address domestic terrorism and organized crime at their roots before they escalate into larger threats. You'd serve as a consultant, providing tactical expertise and training recruits. It's not active duty, but it's meaningful work." For a moment, Maya considered refusing outright. She had already sacrificed so much for her country, enduring physical and emotional scars that would never fully heal. Did she really owe them anything more? Yet, as she thought about the young people in her community, the ones who looked up to her for guidance and protection, she realized that saying yes might allow her to make a broader impact. If she could teach others to defend themselves, to stand against injustice, then perhaps her sacrifices wouldn't have been in vain. "I'll think about it," she replied finally, ending the call without committing. Over the next few weeks, Maya found herself reflecting on her decision. She revisited old memories, both good and bad, from her time in the Special Forces. She remembered the camaraderie, the sense of purpose, the adrenaline rush of completing a mission successfully. But she also recalled the pain, the loss of comrades, the moral compromises, the toll it took on her body and soul. Could she return to that life even in a limited capacity without losing herself again? Her answer came unexpectedly during a visit to a local high school. Maya had agreed to speak at a career day event, sharing insights about graphic design and remote work opportunities. As she stood before a group of students, answering their questions and offering advice, one young girl raised her hand timidly. "What if you're scared?" the girl asked. "Like, really scared because you don't think you can do something?" Maya paused, studying the girl's face. She saw uncertainty there, doubt about her own abilities. It reminded her of herself, at that age, unsure, vulnerable, but eager to prove her worth. "Being scared doesn't mean you're weak," Maya said gently. "It means you care. And when you care enough to push through that fear, amazing things happen." The girl nodded slowly, a flicker of determination replacing the hesitation in her eyes. Watching her transformation, Maya felt a spark ignite within her. She had spent years hiding her true self, believing that revealing her strength would only invite danger. But maybe it was time to embrace her identity, not just as a warrior, but as a mentor, a leader, and a beacon of hope for those who needed it most. With renewed resolve, Maya contacted Agent Carter and accepted his offer. In doing so, she made a promise to herself. This time, she wouldn't lose sight of why she had chosen this path in the first place. It wasn't about glory or revenge. It was about empowering others to rise above adversity, to believe in their own potential. Whether teaching recruits how to handle high-pressure situations or mentoring young people in her community, Maya vowed to lead by example, showing them that courage wasn't defined by physical ability, but by the willingness to stand up for what was right. As weeks turned into months, Maya balanced her new responsibilities with her quiet suburban life. By day, she consulted with government officials, designing strategies to combat domestic extremism and training agents in unconventional combat techniques. By night, she continued volunteering, hosting workshops for teenagers interested in self-defense and leadership. Her dual roles complemented each other perfectly, allowing her to channel her skills toward creating lasting change. Neighbors noticed a subtle shift in Maya's demeanor. She seemed more confident, more at ease with herself. Though she still walked with her cane and maintained her humble persona, there was an aura of quiet authority around her that commanded respect. Children adored her, often stopping by her house to ask for advice or share stories about their dreams. Adults sought her counsel, valuing her wisdom and perspective. Without realizing it, Maya had become a cornerstone of the community, a figure of inspiration and strength. Yet despite her growing influence, Maya never forgot where she had come from. She remembered the nights spent alone, questioning whether she could truly make a difference. She remembered the fear that had gripped her heart every time the iron fist targeted her. And she remembered the moment she decided to fight back, not just for herself, but for everyone who deserved to live free from hatred and oppression. One crisp autumn evening, as Maya strolled through the park near her home, she overheard a group of teenagers talking animatedly about their futures. One boy spoke passionately about becoming a police officer, inspired by heroes like Maya. Another girl dreamed of joining the military, determined to follow in the footsteps of women who had broken barriers before her. Listening to their conversations, Maya smiled to herself. These were the moments that made everything worthwhile, the proof that her efforts had planted seeds of hope in the next generation. As she leaned on her cane, watching the sun dip below the horizon, Maya felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Her journey had been long and arduous, filled with challenges she never could have anticipated. But through it all, she had discovered something invaluable. True strength wasn't about hiding who you were. It was about embracing your gifts and using them to uplift others. And in doing so, Maya Rivers had not only reclaimed her own power but had ignited a spark of courage in countless others. Months passed since Maya Rivers accepted her role as a consultant for the Department of Homeland Security, and her life took on a rhythm that was both familiar and new. During the day, she worked alongside government officials, analyzing intelligence, reports, designing strategies to combat domestic extremism, and training recruits in advanced combat techniques. Her expertise earned her respect among colleagues who initially doubted whether a disabled civilian could contribute meaningfully to such high-stakes operations. Yet every demonstration Maya gave, whether it involved disarming an opponent with her cane or outmaneuvering multiple attackers in close quarters, left them in awe. She proved time and again that physical limitations were no match for skill, strategy, and sheer determination. At night, Maya returned to her quiet suburban home, where she continued mentoring young people in her community. Her workshops became legendary, drawing participants from neighboring towns eager to learn self-defense, leadership, and resilience. What set Maya apart wasn't just her technical knowledge, it was her ability to connect with others on a personal level. She shared stories from her past, not the classified missions or dangerous encounters, but moments when she had felt afraid, uncertain, and overwhelmed. These vulnerabilities resonated deeply with her students, many of whom faced their own struggles. By opening up about her fears, Maya showed them that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was the decision to act despite it. Word of her impact spread beyond Maple Street. Local news outlets began featuring her story, highlighting how a disabled woman had dismantled one of the most notorious gangs in the area while inspiring countless others to stand up against injustice. The irony wasn't lost on Maya. For years, she had hidden behind her cover story, believing that revealing her true identity would only invite danger. Now, she realized that embracing her strength publicly had given her a platform to effect real change. People saw her not just as a fighter but as a symbol of hope, a reminder that anyone, regardless of circumstance, could rise above adversity. Despite her growing influence, Maya remained grounded. She avoided the spotlight whenever possible, preferring to let her actions speak for themselves. When reporters knocked on her door seeking interviews, she politely declined, redirecting their attention to the organizations she supported. "This isn't about me," she told them firmly. "It's about what we can achieve together." Her humility endeared her even more to those around her, solidifying her reputation as someone who cared deeply about making a difference rather than gaining recognition. Her work with the Department of Homeland Security introduced her to challenges she hadn't anticipated. While dismantling the Iron Fist had been a localized effort, her new role required her to tackle broader issues: human trafficking rings operating across state lines, white supremacist groups planning mass attacks, and cybercriminals exploiting vulnerable communities online. Each case demanded a unique approach, forcing Maya to adapt quickly and think creatively. Some days, she spent hours poring over data, piecing together patterns that others missed. Other times, she found herself teaching agents how to blend into crowds or diffuse tense situations without resorting to violence. It was demanding work, but it reminded her why she had joined the military in the first place: to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. One particular case stood out during this period. A whistleblower within a far-right extremist group contacted authorities, claiming they were planning a coordinated attack on several multicultural festivals scheduled for the summer. The information was vague, providing only snippets of encrypted messages and partial locations. Maya was tasked with leading the investigation, working closely with law enforcement agencies to identify key players and prevent disaster. The stakes were higher than ever, and the pressure mounted daily. Maya threw herself into the mission, relying on skills honed over decades of service. She analyzed communication logs, cross-referenced social media activity, and mapped potential targets based on historical patterns. At the same time, she collaborated with undercover operatives, guiding them through interactions with suspected members of the group. Her calm demeanor under pressure earned her admiration from her team, who trusted her instincts implicitly. Slowly but surely, pieces of the puzzle fell into place. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. One evening, while reviewing footage from a surveillance camera near a suspected meeting spot, Maya noticed something peculiar. A man wearing a red baseball cap walking past the frame 3 separate times within an hour. To most observers, it might have seemed insignificant, an ordinary pedestrian taking a leisurely stroll. But Maya recognized it as a classic counter-surveillance tactic used by individuals trying to detect tails. She flagged the video immediately, instructing officers to track the man's movements. Their efforts paid off. Within days, they identified him as a mid-level operative responsible for logistics within the extremist group. Following his trail led them to a safe house where leaders of the organization convened to finalize their plans. Armed with this information, Maya coordinated a raid, ensuring minimal risk to civilians while maximizing the chances of capturing everyone involved. On the night of the operation, she watched from a van parked blocks away, listening intently to live updates transmitted through earpieces worn by SWAT teams. As each suspect was apprehended, she allowed herself a small sigh of relief. Another threat neutralized, but triumph brought its own weight. After the raid, Maya sat alone in her living room, replaying the events in her mind. She thought about the young men and women arrested that night, young people radicalized by hate-filled rhetoric, lured into lives of violence and destruction. Though justice had been served, Maya couldn't shake the sadness lingering in her chest. These weren't monsters born evil. They were products of broken systems, neglected communities, and unchecked ideologies. If society didn't address these root causes, there would always be more extremists waiting to take their place. This realization reinforced Maya's commitment to education and mentorship. She believed that prevention was as important, if not more so, than intervention. By empowering young people with tools to navigate challenges, she hoped to steer them away from paths of hatred and despair. To that end, she expanded her workshops, incorporating lessons on critical thinking, empathy, and conflict resolution. She partnered with schools, libraries, and youth centers to reach wider audiences, tailoring her presentations to meet the needs of diverse groups. Whether speaking to teenagers struggling with bullying or adults seeking ways to foster inclusivity in their workplaces, Maya approached each session with patience, kindness, and unwavering belief in humanity's capacity for growth. Her efforts bore fruit in unexpected ways. One evening, after a particularly engaging workshop at a local community center, a young man approached her hesitantly. His name was Jamal, no relation to her former teammate, and he confessed that he had once been affiliated with a gang similar to the Iron Fist. "I didn't know any better back then," he admitted, his voice trembling. "But hearing you talk tonight, it made me realize I don't have to stay stuck in that life." Maya listened intently, offering words of encouragement, without judgment. Over the following weeks, she mentored Jamal, helping him enroll in vocational training programs and reconnect with family members he had estranged. Watching him transform, from a disillusioned youth burdened by guilt to a determined individual eager to rebuild his life, filled Maya with pride. Stories like Jamal's reminded her that change was possible, even in the darkest corners. As spring turned to summer, Maya reflected on how much her life had changed since confronting the Iron Fist. She had gone from being a recluse hiding behind a facade to a leader inspiring others to embrace their inner strength. Yet, despite her accomplishments, she knew her journey was far from over. There would always be battles to fight, injustices to confront, and hearts to heal. And as long as she drew breath, Maya vowed to remain steadfast in her mission, to protect, empower, and uplift. One afternoon, while volunteering at a park cleanup event, Maya encountered Mrs. Thompson, an elderly neighbor who had lived on Maple Street for decades. The woman smiled warmly, handing Maya a cup of lemonade. "You've done so much for us," she said softly. "We're lucky to have you here." Maya accepted the drink with gratitude, her gaze drifting toward the children playing nearby. They laughed and shouted, oblivious to the dangers lurking beyond their bubble of safety. For now, at least, they were free to dream without fear. That knowledge filled Maya with a profound sense of purpose. She might never rid the world of hatred entirely, but she could create spaces where love and understanding thrived, and perhaps, in doing so, she could inspire others to carry the torch long after she was gone. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the sky, Maya leaned on her cane and smiled. She had walked a long road to get here, one marked by pain, sacrifice, and resilience. Yet every step had been worth it. Because in the end, it wasn't about the battles she won or the accolades she received. It was about leaving the world a little brighter, a little kinder than she had found it. And that, she thought, was the greatest victory of all. The summer sun blazed over Maple Street, casting long shadows across the neatly trimmed lawns and vibrant flower beds. The neighborhood had transformed in ways no one could have predicted just a year ago. Where fear and division once reigned, unity and hope now flourished. Community events drew record crowds, local businesses thrived, and children played freely without worrying about threats lurking in the alleys. At the center of it all was Maya Rivers, a quiet yet unshakable force, who had become the heart and soul of the community. Maya's days were busier than ever. Between her consulting work with the Department of Homeland Security and her volunteer efforts mentoring young people, she barely had time to pause and reflect on how far she had come. Yet, there were moments when the weight of her journey caught up with her, moments when fatigue seeped into her bones or memories of past battles surfaced unbidden. On those occasions, Maya reminded herself why she kept pushing forward. Because someone had to. Because if she didn't, who would? Her role as a consultant continued to evolve. What began as an advisory position soon expanded into something more significant. Government officials recognized Maya's unique blend of tactical expertise, empathy, and grassroots experience, qualities that made her invaluable in addressing complex social issues. She was invited to participate in policy discussions aimed at preventing radicalization, reducing gang violence, and supporting victims of hate crimes. Her insights often challenged conventional approaches, urging leaders to focus not just on enforcement, but also on education and rehabilitation. One such initiative involved creating programs for former gang members seeking redemption. Inspired by her work with Jamal, Maya proposed a pilot project offering counseling, job training, and mentorship to individuals willing to leave their violent pasts behind. Initially met with skepticism, the idea gained traction after Maya presented compelling data showing its potential impact. Within months, the program launched in several cities, producing promising results. Participants spoke openly about how Maya's belief in second chances had changed their lives, inspiring others to follow suit. Though her professional achievements were impressive, it was her personal connections that truly defined Maya's legacy. She had always been a private person, preferring solitude over social gatherings. But over time, she found joy in opening her home to those in need. Neighbors stopped by regularly, sharing meals, laughter, and stories. Children treated her like a surrogate aunt, confiding in her about everything from school projects to crushes. Even strangers reached out, sending letters or emails thanking her for being a source of inspiration during difficult times. One letter stood out among the rest. It came from a woman named Elena, whose teenage son had narrowly escaped recruitment by the Iron Fist years earlier. "You saved my boy's life," Elena wrote, "not just by stopping those monsters, but by showing him, and me, that there's another way to live. Thank you for reminding us we're stronger than our fears." Reading those words brought tears to Maya's eyes. She hadn't realized until then how deeply her actions resonated with others. Every act of kindness, every moment of courage, rippled outward in ways she couldn't fully comprehend. And though she never sought recognition, knowing she had touched, even one life gave her profound satisfaction. Despite her successes, Maya faced challenges that tested her resolve. Rival gangs occasionally attempted to reclaim territory lost after the Iron Fist's downfall. Online trolls targeted her, spreading lies and hateful comments in an effort to discredit her work. Some critics accused her of glorifying vigilantism, questioning whether her methods aligned with ethical standards. Through it all, Maya remained steadfast, refusing to let negativity derail her mission. She addressed criticism head-on, engaging in open dialogues and inviting skeptics to see the positive changes firsthand. Most importantly, she stayed true to her values, prioritizing compassion and integrity above all else. As autumn approached, bringing cooler temperatures and golden leaves drifting lazily to the ground, Maya received an unexpected invitation. A prestigious university in Chicago asked her to deliver a keynote speech at their annual leadership conference. The theme, Courage in Action, Turning Adversity into Opportunity. At first, Maya hesitated. Public speaking wasn't her forte, and the thought of addressing hundreds of strangers intimidated her. But something about the request resonated deeply. Perhaps it was the chance to share her story, not as a hero, but as a human being who had stumbled, fallen, and risen again. On the day of the conference, Maya stood backstage gripping her cane tightly. Her palms were sweaty, and her heart raced as she listened to the MC introduce her. When her name echoed through the auditorium, accompanied by thunderous applause, she took a deep breath and stepped onto the stage. The spotlight illuminated, her face revealing a mixture of vulnerability and strength that captivated the audience instantly. "Thank you," she began, her voice steady despite the nerves coursing through her veins. "When I agreed to speak today, I wasn't sure what to say. After all, my story isn't particularly unique. Like many of you, I've faced obstacles, made mistakes, and questioned whether I was strong enough to keep going. But somewhere along the way, I learned something important. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about choosing to act even when you're terrified." She paused, scanning the sea of faces before her. Some nodded in agreement. Others leaned forward, hanging on her every word. For the next 20 minutes, Maya recounted her journey, the struggles, the victories, and the lessons she had gleaned along the way. She spoke candidly about hiding behind her disability, confronting the iron fist, and discovering her purpose. She emphasized the importance of resilience, teamwork, and believing in oneself, regardless of circumstances. By the time she finished, the room erupted in applause. People rose to their feet, cheering and wiping away tears. Several attendees approached her afterward, expressing gratitude for her honesty and wisdom. One young man, visibly emotional, told her he had been contemplating giving up on his dreams. "Your words reminded me that I'm not alone," he said. "That gives me hope." Returning home that evening, Maya felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. Speaking publicly had forced her to confront parts of herself she had long buried, the doubts, the insecurities, the pain. But it had also reaffirmed her belief in the power of storytelling. By sharing her truth, she had created space for others to embrace theirs. In the weeks that followed, invitations poured in, from schools, organizations, and conferences eager to hear her message. Maya accepted some, declining others to preserve her energy for the work closest to her heart. She continued balancing her dual roles, dedicating herself to both national security and community building. Though the demands sometimes left her exhausted, she refused to slow down. There was still so much to do, so many lives to touch. Winter arrived, blanketing Maple Street in a soft layer of snow. Maya watched from her window as neighbors bundled up and ventured outside, laughing as they built snowmen and engaged in playful snowball fights. Children knocked on her door asking if she wanted to join them. Smiling, she grabbed her coat and stepped outside, letting the crisp air invigorate her senses. As she joined in their games, Maya reflected on how far she and her community had come. From the darkness of hatred and fear, they had emerged, stronger, united by shared experiences and a commitment to kindness. While challenges undoubtedly lay ahead, she knew they could face them together. After all, resilience wasn't born in isolation. It grew in connection. Later that evening, as Maya sat by the fire sipping hot cocoa, she allowed herself a rare moment of introspection. She thought about the choices that had led her here, the decision to fight back against the iron fist, the willingness to reveal her true self, the courage to inspire others. Each step had been daunting, fraught with uncertainty. Yet looking back, she wouldn't change a single one. Because in the end, life wasn't about avoiding fear or hardship. It was about embracing them, learning from them, and using them to fuel growth. Maya Rivers had done exactly that, and in doing so, she had become more than a warrior or a mentor. She had become a beacon of hope, proof that even in the darkest times, light could prevail. With a contented sigh, Maya leaned back in her chair, watching the flames dance in the hearth. Outside, snowflakes drifted silently to the ground, covering the world in a blanket of tranquility. For the first time in years, she felt at peace, not because the fight was over, but because she knew she was ready for whatever came next. And that, she realized, was the greatest victory of all.